Good morning, folks. Welcome to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, your host, and today we're in Riley County. We're at Ashland Bottoms at the agronomy farm just south of Manhattan, and we're going to be talking with Dr. Deanne Presley, our soil management specialist here at K-State, and she's going to be telling us about things we should be thinking about cover crops. Cover crops have really taken off this past decade, and there's lots of interest, so come on back after these words from our sponsors and we'll talk to Deanne about cover crops. See you then.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, your host, and we're in luck today because we're in Riley County. We're at the agronomy farm at Ashland Bottoms, and with us we have Dr. Deanne Presley, our soil management specialist, and we're going to be talking about cover crops today. And Deanne, so the first question is, why cover crops? What's the deal with cover crops?
Sure. So I get that question a lot. Is it a new thing? And the answer is no, not at all. People have been doing cover crops for probably thousands of years, but in the U.S. we've been doing cover crops since we've been farming. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, they were fans of cover crops. So cover crop is simply a crop that's planted to improve the soil, usually. So planted commonly to either stop erosion or put nutrients or organic matter back into the soil. So the easiest way to explain it is a crop that's planted that we're not going to use for anything. The cash crop is the one we harvest for grain. A forage crop is eaten by an animal, but a cover crop is normally referred to as a crop that's just used to improve soil or keep soil from leaving.
Okay, so yeah, that would be one of the things I always thought about cover crops, not so much the nutrient gain from it, but just having that ground covered so there wouldn't be erosion. But you know, if you had a legume in the cover crop mix, then you've got some added nitrogen there
but
as
also
well.
that organic matter, building organic matter up. On average, on most of our cropland, over half the organic matter is gone from where it started. So if you compare any crop field...
You're talking historically. Since we started agriculture, tillage, that's what, okay. Right.
Yeah, so if you would compare a pasture that's never been tilled with cropland, usually there's only about half as much organic matter. Exactly. And so, you know, some of that's
oxidation with tillage, the oxidation of the organic matter.
That and erosion to the best soil down to the bottom of the hill or into our creeks and streams. And so organic matter is what gives soils its nutrient holding capacity. It really enhances it. And the water holding capacity, and also improves the soil physical properties. So it's easier to plant into a soil with better organic matter. And soils with more organic matter take water a little better. So not just the nitrogen, but also building up organic matter. That's one of the purposes of cover crops.
Well, now, you know, with the advent of strip tillage or no-till, I see cover crops being advantaged, but if you work the ground, then we're back to almost to where we started from, of losing organic matter and that sort of thing. I see you don't agree. I don't see you agree totally, but I'm seeing with no-till, I see cover crops working well.
Well, I just say with no-till, we build back soil organic matter too. So if a farmer is doing a diverse crop rotation and no-tilling, they're putting organic matter back into the soil just that way. And if they take cover crops and add it, that takes it even more faster. But back to the whole thing with tillage and cover crops. So truly, if a crop is grown, like a legume cover crop is grown and then turned into the soil, so here behind us you can see we're in a no-till situation, but if it were to be turned in, you can see some tillage in the background. That's referred to as more of a green manure. Still, that's good for soils if a farmer is going to choose to do tillage. I'd rather see them do that than not do that. Right, building soil, giving back.
Okay. Deanne, stay with us. We got to take a break right here. You folks at home, now's your chance to get a cup of coffee, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego is driven by the spirit of American ingenuity. Come in for a new Chevrolet car, truck, or SUV. If we don't have exactly what you want, we'll find it for you. And we also have a great selection of used cars. We make sure you have an easy, fun, and transparent sales experience that saves you time and money. But if you want high-pressure salesmen and hours spent in the finance office, you'll just have to go elsewhere. Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're making car buying great again. That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, your host, and we have Deanne Presley with us, our soil management specialist. And Deanne, we talked a little bit, the introduction of cover crops there, the first segment. Now let's talk about some of the types of cover crops.
Sure. So when people ask me about cover crops, I kind of, in my mind, I have to categorize them a little bit. So there's cover crops you can grow that are more in the summer, right after wheat.
Summer cover crops?
Or you can grow them more in the winter. So try to plant them after corn or soybeans, which is tricky, but it can be done. So there's that, winter versus summer. And then there's legume versus non-legume. So,
within each of those groups, I suppose.
Yeah. So there's legumes we can grow in the summer, such as sun hemp or cowpeas. Those work great. And then there's legumes we could grow in the fall, like a vetch or a winter pea or something like that. So whenever somebody says, hey, let's talk about what I can plant, I say, let's first start talking about two things. When do you want to plant them? Between what crop and what other crop? And also, what are you going to do with it? What's your goal? Is something going to eat this? So I said in the first little part there, I said a cover crop is something that's not eaten. But the fact of the matter is, in practicality, most Kansas farmers are pretty practical, and they're thinking, well, what could I grow that a cow could eat? Usually cattle, right? So what could I grow that a cow could eat? So I don't actually draw that distinction and say I'm not going to talk about forages. We have meetings all the time. We do research in which we evaluate how much biomass is produced and the quality of that biomass. So even though I say strictly as a cover, really I don't mean it. I'm not serious. We'll evaluate it for forage too. So we think about it all.
Yeah, you're right. The farmers, when they see, foot and a half of forage out there of some type, whether legume or non-legume, they're thinking, okay, my cows or goats or sheep or whatever can eat that.
Right, and so that affects really their selection that they make from the beginning. So if something's going to eat it, they're probably going to look at that and say, what things could I select that are high biomass producing in a short window of time? But then, of course, there's the quality issues, like, well, do those accumulate nitrogen, and thinking about it that way. So there's just a ton of extension work and research work that we're doing right now to really gauge that so that we can do some of the experimentation before farmers have to on their own farms. Although the on-farm experimentation that's happening is critical too. So we didn't really mention brassicas earlier, but plants in the Brassicaceae family, those are of course non-legumes, but that's one of the types of plants that we have a lot growing.
And we're talking about the brassicas, we're talking about canola or rapeseed, radishes and turnips, basically.
Yeah, those are some of them. And then there's actually these hybrid crosses that have been made. So forage radishes, for example. So some of those, what's nice about them is that if an animal were to swipe off that top, many of them, it'll still regrow from that growing point. Some plants won't, but the forage ones that have been bred for that will regrow, and so then they produce more biomass, just kind of like salad greens, they regrow. So again, whether somebody picks a tillage radish or they pick a forage radish depends on what their intended use is.
Right, exactly. Stay with us, we've got to take a break. Folks, stay with us, we'll be right back after these words.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Hey, I'm Clark Victory. I grew up right here on this little ranch near Chelsea, Oklahoma. Roped and ranched all my life, and a few years ago I had an injury that created what they call a frozen shoulder in layman's terms. It got to the point that I couldn't reach, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything. After speaking with the surgeon in Tulsa, he finally told me that he could make my shoulder better if he did surgery, but he absolutely couldn't fix it. I decided that, maybe I better listen to my friend John, and I called Kansas Regenerative Medical Center. I talked to Patrick Farley and was just excited about the whole aspect of going up there and having the opportunity to focus on getting better. The next morning at 8:30, went into the clinic, did the stem cell replacement. By 12:30, my wife and I had lunch and was driving back to Chelsea. I feel better. We work around here. Some days we work pretty hard around here, and like any older guy does, I get pretty sore, pretty tired, but my right shoulder doesn't get sore. It's like a baby's arm.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities, big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, and with us we have Deanne Presley, our soil management specialist, and we're on the agronomy farm at Ashland Bottoms, south of Manhattan. And Deanne, you alluded to research a while ago about cover crops, and kind of tell us where we're standing right now.
Okay, first, this experiment, this is a project initiated by Craig Roseboom back in 2007, and it's been going on ever since. And so what we have here is, if it's in this line kind of north to south, but there's a wheat, sorghum, and soybean rotation. And so, but after the wheat is when the cover crop is in the experiment. It's not after the sorghum or after the soybean, just after the wheat. And so half of those cover crops, so half of the different treatments are summer crops. So for example, this dead residue right here is sorghum Sudan grass. And this one that I'm standing in right now, if you can see kind of this darker gray, this was a beautiful stand of crimson clover, just gorgeous red flowers, pinkish red flowers that were growing here. So
after the wheat stubble, see a little volunteer wheat here.
Yep, that's going to be dead here soon, and then they'll be planting sorghum here in probably a month or so, right? So, but anyway, so different purpose. So you have a legume here. This one was a forage type experiment, and so then there's measurements of all kinds being taken out here. So Craig has different nitrogen rates to examine the benefits. So the benefits here of a legume,
right.
I think the nitrogen contribution of this crimson clover will probably be somewhere between 30, 40, 50 pounds.
Right.
The subsequent crop, so it's an excellent crop for that.
Obviously, the longer it goes before it's terminated, the more nitrogen
Yes.
it'll fix.
And this year we planted it and did everything right. We were living right. We got plenty of growth off of it this time. So this, you might think, oh, it doesn't look like much. For crimson clover it is. Crimson clover is about the roots. So beautiful, as a soil scientist, beautiful root system. But the sorghum Sudan grass, the purpose of that is to grow above ground biomass for an animal to consume. And so that's what the kind of research is not only the performance of the cover crops, the performance of the subsequent cash crops.
Right.
We have to figure out a way to monetize and pay for these cover crops. Finally, if you see that trailer in the background, that's a researcher named Peter Tomlinson who's doing work with greenhouse gases. So how does having a cover crop living and growing change what greenhouse gases are given off from the soil versus a soil that has no cover crop? So if they're consuming...
More exposed, are you saying?
Yeah, the different exposure of soil. So we have a bare soil over there. What's happening? First of all, what's happening to the carbon, but what's happening to any of the nitrogen left over in that system from the previous crop? Denitrification, leaching if the soil type is right, versus here where something is green and growing, it'll utilize it. Sorghum Sudan grass would do an excellent job utilizing that, and then perhaps releasing it back through the soil to the next subsequent crop, and maybe ending up with less greenhouse gas emissions. And that's his work that he's doing there.
Okay, so you got three studies here.
And don't forget about the soil quality. That's where I come in. We measure how well the soils, if they're changing.
Okay, hang on. I want to continue the research aspect here in a second, but we have to take a break. Folks, stay with us. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways. Of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at KFRM.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back, folks, to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer. Deanne Presley is still with us. She didn't run off during the break. So, Deanne, we talked a little bit about the research a while ago, and let's continue research in other parts of the state.
Sure. So we have a huge rainfall change across our state, right?
Exactly.
So let's start dry first. So John Holman is a researcher who's been doing cover crop work since 2006 at Garden City. He's got an experiment involving two different experiments, actually. One that involves putting a cover crop in a wheat rotation, so wheat, cover crop, wheat, or wheat, fallow wheat, or continuous wheat. That's the kind of thing he does. And looking at the effects of the cover crop on the subsequent wheat crop, but also on the value of that cover crop as a forage. And so just to summarize his work, depends if it's a good rainfall year or bad rainfall year. If it's a bad rainfall year, those cover crops, they'd use up moisture.
And they don't produce much either.
True. They don't produce a ton, literally a ton. But, I mean, it depends on the crop, because he's got 15 different covers that he's evaluating. So some are, low biomass producers like lentils. They don't produce much. And he's got others like triticale that produce a lot. So in those years, it really depends what you grow. And then in the high rainfall years, they really don't affect the subsequent yields very much. And when you grow a whole bunch of triticale and feed that to something, that's actually quite positive for income. So you have to look at that work and think about what's your objective. What do you want to do to make a conclusion? And then if we move, so I think what's Garden City, about 16, 18, 20 inches of rain, depending.
16 to 18.
Highly variable. So, and then if you move, Craig Rosenboom, I said, he also has another experiment in central Kansas, so Belleville, and I'm not sure the rainfall on that, 22-ish, 24-ish, maybe something like that. So he's got an experiment also after wheat with cover crops, and there's a grad student, her name is Maddie Kirkendall, and she's measuring the water use by those cover crops, so very detailed work. And it's fascinating. They're finding after wheat, plant a cover crop, you'll get water extraction down 8 or 9 feet from a radish by the time that radish dies. We've got some radishes behind us, but by the time those radishes die, because they're not winter hardy at all, by the time they die, they've used water down 8 or 9 feet. Fascinating. And that difference in that water, they've been seeing that through the subsequent crop, which I think they've been growing corn. And so, again, is that positive? Is that negative? Well, again, if it's just truly a cover, you'd have to look at those results with your intended purpose in mind. So now let's shift entirely somewhere different. Parsons, Kansas. Actually,
Southeast?
Yeah, Columbus, Kansas is where we've got Gretchen Sassenrath and Jamie Lynn Farney are the researchers there. And they're measuring what happens if we plant a cover crop, actually using it for forage, because Jamie Lynn's an animal scientist, and they're doing mixtures work. So this idea of what if you mix 3 things together, maybe you get some kind of some synergy. So they always have a grass, so cereal, so barley and oats and maybe wheat is one of the other ones. They always have brassicaceae, so that one's a radish or a turnip, and then they have a legume. So that one's Berseem clover. That has not grown at all. But then there's some other one, I think peas. And then my grad student helps in clips, so she'll clip out a known area quantifying the biomass at 30, 60, and 90 days. So 30 days, we were sticking that in gallon Ziplocs. By 60 days, we had trash bags, big trash bags. So 60 days was a good amount of time for some forage growth there.
Okay. We got to take another break, so hang on. Don't run away. Folks, don't run away either. We'll be right back after these words.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help?
How can we help?
Tarwater Farm and Home has been family owned and operated since its beginning in 1978. What you need for farm and agriculture, lawn and garden, clothing and footwear, and so much more. You'll be surprised at what you'll find in this huge store. They have what you need and lots of it. So come take a look. You'll discover that customer service is first and foremost. Always has been with the Tarwaters. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, and in this last segment with Deanne, we're going to talk a little bit about mixed crops and some other things. But let's go ahead and continue the thought process of 1, 2, or 3, or a half a dozen, or a dozen cover crops mixtures.
Sure, farmers are very interested in mixtures, and there's some good reasons for that. We have mixtures in a few of our experiments. John has one, Craig has one, so we have mixtures. So people are combining all sorts of things, and the reason they're doing that is to gain some multiple benefits. So if you think about a crop that's got some short fibrous roots, and think about big old tap roots on something like a radish, which, like I said, they're extracting water down to 8 or 9 feet. So they're getting good stuff down from 8 or 9 feet and bringing it up, such as maybe some nitrate that's moved down, or maybe other nutrients that have become a little more depleted.
So you're recycling, basically.
So recycling of nutrients. But what else? Big roots, little fine roots, they enhance soil a lot. And so this equipment behind me, this is some of the stuff I do to quantify soil health. So when we talk about soil health, we're talking about the physical and the chemical and the biological properties. Now I like to measure the physical, so we pound these rings into the ground about 3 inches, fill it up with water, and measure how fast the water moves into the soil. Been doing that for the past couple of weeks. So we measure it dry and then we measure it wet again. And so those are just some of the things that maybe it's hard to monetize, quantify the benefit to an individual farmer from getting water in the soil faster, but boy, if they can get in there and plant a day or two earlier than if they hadn't, that's kind of, getting planting done in a timely fashion. Or if water goes in rather than running off from an environmental standpoint, that's a good thing. Prevent some regulatory agencies from stopping what we want to do, I guess.
And where can people get information about cover crops?
I want to show a pub that this is from K-State, and in here, and that's a chapter in here on cover crops, and it's got a table that talks about all the different uses of cover crops and then several different cover crops. This is available from any extension office in the state.
What about this one?
This one's called Managing Cover Crops Profitably, 3rd edition, and if you want to know anything about any individual cover crop, it's probably in here. So something on annual ryegrass. We're trying to figure out what's the difference between annual ryegrass and cereal rye. That's in there, and it'll tell you when to seed it, when to seed it, how to seed it, seeding rates, when to use one and not the other. So that's a great reference, and that's actually online for free from an organization called SARE, Sustainable Ag Research and Education. So.
Deanna, I really appreciate you taking time and talking to us about cover crops. I think it'd be kind of fun to come back when some of them are growing and take a look at them and some of the actual data that you've come up with.
Well, I have to say that I'm glad we did this here in 2015 because 2015 is the International Year of Soils. International. UN proclaimed it so, the United Nations. So as a soil scientist, we're pretty excited about that. It brings some recognition to soils.
There you go, and its importance around the world. Thank you. Folks, thank you for being with us on this issue of That's My Farm. And don't forget, next week at this same time, we'll have another session of That's My Farm. So see you then.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.